Why does Lara Crigger need to meet Nina Badzin? Lara Crigger, yes, that's how you say her name. We're going to get to that. But first, their parents, the paths that they both took as kids. Not a straight line, not a straight line at all. You want to hear about these journeys? We talk about their approach to parenting as it stands today, as women of faith. There's a lot of really interesting Jewish wisdom in this episode. And we talk about how to balance teaching and advice, no matter what you're doing, no matter what you're selling. This is how it applies to parenting, friendship, professional careers, arcs, relationships, the whole nine. You're going to love hearing Nina and Lara meet each other. Roll some clips, Jack.
This idea of having to just accept the fact that you are going to get upset at your close friends and they're going to get upset at you because you're close. You have a relationship, and the people you don't get upset at and the people who don't get upset at you are acquaintances.
That's not how you say my name.
Oh my God.
It is Crigger.
Like Kigger, Crigger.
See, I wanted to say that, and now I still got it.
6 months before I got to the end of my undergraduate, I got really good grades. So I had a full ride to multiple places, and I turned it all down to become a writer.
I decided I wanted to be an English teacher, and they were like kind of unimpressed, but they have sacrificed a certain part of their adult life to like the altar of kids' sports, and we just we won't.
You've got to allow your kids to explore their curiosities. I just like being the smartest person in the room. Friends literally will save your life.
It's less turtles and more friends and stories all the way down. And neither of you ever seem to forget that. You're watching Just Press Record right here. This is the audio-visual version of Cultish Creative. We're on YouTube. I'm Matt Zeigler. This is the show where I invite two people who've genuinely never met before to prove just how fun growing your network can be. So subscribe, like, comments, all the things below. Don't forget the OG written version at cultishcreative.com. And I've got introductions to both of them that's going to be there for you right after this episode comes out. So make sure you check it out. Why make them wait anymore? This first guest, forget making a soup. I am going full Frankenstein in a pot here for both these guests. I'm starting with Olivia Newton-John. Yes, Grease. Wife and I are about to go see that in the theater for the first time, which we're really excited about. But I'm thinking later in life, cancer, environmental, and animal rights activist, which is all the tee up I can do to say, let's get physics majors. Great song reference, right? But have you heard, Lara, this is for you, have you heard the Benson Boone mystical, magical song? The straight ripoff of Olivia? It hurts. It's weird and it hurts.
Well, now I'm going to have to go after this recording.
Go look it up later. You'll be scarred. But let's get more physics majors in here. Olivia Isaac Newton-John. We all need some sciences in our life so we can leave them behind, or maybe not at all. And one more Frankenstein step to go. Pop science, now bringing it to the current home. Yes, we're going all the way back to New Orleans, which could only mean a sprinkle of Dr. John. So who is this Sir Dr. Olivia Isaac Newton-John monster? Is that a tale? Yes, that's two. The wonderful thing about Crigger's, a Crigger's a wonderful thing. And the most wonderful thing about Crigger's is she's the only one. Lara Crigger, welcome to the show.
That's not how you say my name.
Oh my God. It is Crigger.
Like Kigger, Crigger.
See, I wanted to say that, and now I still got it. What are you going to say, Nina?
Do you edit these?
Lightly.
Okay,
You should not edit that. Like,
leaving
just
it.
own it.
Okay,
Own
I
it.
won't.
leaving it in.
That's good. to know.
Because usually people get my first name wrong. It's not often that I get the second. So like this is an amazing, wonderful day.
Because I wanted to make this Tigger reference so bad because I've been singing that song. And I actually was like, I can't sing the whole song at the intro. Most people are going to tune out before I even get halfway through this. But yes, the wonderful thing about Criggers is you're the only one in my heart, or at least on this show today. And I got to introduce you to somebody, Lara, and I can say both names right here, hopefully. She's a Frankenstein too. Let's do this. A bit more Western, perhaps, at least at present. I'm starting with a deep cut. This is even deeper than my Benson Boone diss. Nina Moraes Cohen. Serious question. Have you ever even heard that name before, Nina? All right, we're going there. So she's Philly born, so I have to root for her. But from there, she's a suffragist, an author, an educator, on top of being a founding member of the National Council of Jewish Women in a little town you might have heard of called Minneapolis. This guest can get down like that, especially on the writer community building front. So now who else? I also recall this wild story. This is 2020, not written by you, Nina, but it's this idea where they were imposing the tragedy of George Floyd's death with the title of Minnesota Goddamn. And this guest has that gift from bridging ideas across genres and friend circles, which means part 2 of her Frankenstein is going to Nina Simone. So Nina Maraise Cohen Simone, I like where this is going. Probably just wandering. I know you're terrified. And if Maraise was so close, I need one more regional reference. Even if it doesn't work for her, I'm not going with Prince. I'm not even going with Princess, but I am going with the OEOEO. I know what time it is. Less jungle, more Jewish love, which if that's a thing, I'm not Googling it. I'm scared. The Nina Morris Day Cohen Simone of Just Press Record. It can only be one person. She's not bad meaning bad. She's bad meaning good. Nina Badzin, welcome to Just Press Record.
Thank you.
All right. First question, Nina, have you ever met Lara before? Is this truly a first?
Truly a first.
Amazing. Lara, you can confirm also truly a first?
Truly a first.
All right, then we're going straight into the deep end with this one. I'll have you guess each other's CVs. I'll have you guess why I thought you should meet. I've got the answer written down on the back of this card. Lara, you got to tell a story first. I'm see if I'm going to mess the name up here. Boetez, I know it's spelled. Can you tell the story about how you got this? Nina, are you a dog person? Do you have dogs?
I have a long answer to that, but no, I don't have dogs, and I'm not a dog person. But I grew up with dogs.
We're going to save the long answer for that because Lara's got this amazing story that I just wanted her to share about how you found this dog.
Your research astounds me. Astounds me. Okay, so about 20 years ago, this year, I know because it was Hurricane Katrina related. And this year is the 20th anniversary of Hurricane Katrina. So my boyfriend, then boyfriend, now husband, his family evacuated to my family in Atlanta. They went to go stay with them for a few weeks. And so we went to go visit, and just, the week after Hurricane Katrina hit, we went down to just kind of make sure they were settled okay and, connect. And as we were heading back to the airport, we were driving along all the roads in Atlanta have like at least 6 lanes. So when I say 6-lane highway, it could be any of them, then probably a peach tree of some sort. And there was this little black fuzzball darting across the highway. And it was being chased by a shepherd, a German shepherd. Both my husband and I love dogs. We're just fresh out of college at that point. So we didn't have any, but, it's a bit of a Dr. Dolittle complex in both of us. So, pulled over, and it was the little black fur ball ended up being a puppy. No collar, no tags, no nothing, no microchip, as we found out. And, we couldn't just leave it there. So we took her. And that's how we acquired, our first dog, Botez. We found her, being just chased by a shepherd across the street. So Bootez is a constellation. It's the shepherding constellation, the shepherd constellation. And it has or had special relevance to me because when I was in college, I was studying to be an astrophysics major. And I did work in the star lab there, hunting for planets. This was back when hunting for planets was still kind of a new and sexy thing, and we hadn't involved the robots in it and all that stuff. It was still a largely manual affair that you could shunt off to an undergrad like me. And Boetez was one of the constellations that I spent a lot of time looking for planets in. So that's where it came to mind. Oh, and also she had little white paws on her white paws on her paws. You know what I mean? Which look like booty. And so when you write out the word Botez, it looks like booties. So yeah, that's the story.
That's great.
I don't want to dig into trauma here. Is
Yeah,
it
it's
a
not
bad
that
dog
bad.
story?
It's not that bad. It's more like laziness. So I grew up with my parents rescued greyhounds, and we always had two at once. And greyhounds have very short hair, and they would lay all over the beds and everything, and they shed everywhere. There was not a surface that you could sit on in my house growing up that you were not covered in hair. And my mom owned a needlepoint store, and so she would work like really till like 5 or something. And so oftentimes I had to let the dogs out and feed them when I got home from school. And these dogs would like race around, and sometimes they would escape. Like if someone had left open the gate in the backyard or something, a dog would run away, and then I'd have to like go find the dog. And I hated the smell of the dog food. And my husband also grew up with dogs, not nearly as dramatic as that. But both of us just, it was never even really a debate. We just did not want a dog. And we have 4 kids. And so sometimes we joke that we had, number 4 was the puppy. So we had Nate instead of a puppy.
This kind of stuff counts too. And I'm also sympathetic. Like my parents we were the no dog household. It's like, how about a goldfish? How about something else? Because there's 3 boys terrorizing everything, and we all wanted a dog. But it's like, how much extra can 2 people?
Yeah, the extra work. That's what I said. It's like more of a laziness thing. I just don't, it's not like I don't like dogs. I just don't want more things to take care of, clean up after, and all that.
You're not wrong there.
Yeah.
And also very pro on I love my like hypoallergenic dog. And I was really nervous when we got our new dog because I was like, I've avoided shedding now for so many years. Are we really going back to this? And the little dachshund mix isn't so bad. So
we've had shedding dogs ever since we picked up Botez, right? It's been black hair everywhere. We had a husky. Like there would just be tumbleweeds of his undercoat going across our kitchen or living room at any given time. So I used to joke that you could actually, you could take his fur, rub it together. You can't hear, well, you can, people who are watching, I guess you can see me. You can rub his fur together and make yarn out of it. And actually some people do that. They like take, their fur, the undercoat of their husky's fur, and I mean you have to collect a lot of it, but they spin it into yarn, and full of useless information.
that's okay. Some people look for constellations and planets. Others look for husky, little playmates and playthings. Nina, what did mom and dad actually do? So say a little more about this.
My dad, who passed away like 3 years ago, but he was part of his family business. So backing up, my grandfather imported screws, nuts, and bolts. So I actually think he was the first person in America to import screws, nuts, and bolts. His father dealt with screws, nuts, and bolts in America, and then so that's great grandfather, and then my grandfather was the first to import. And then my grandfather died in a plane crash and on his way to Japan in 1971. I'm named after him. His name was Norman. And so my dad took over that business in his 30s. He was young. And so that's what my dad did for my whole childhood. I mean, he owned a company and that's what they did. And so he was a business guy. And my mom's done all kinds of things. Before she had the needlepoint store, she was a handwriting analyst, which is kind of a different, unexpected. I bet you don't get that answer a lot. She wrote a book about it as well. And she used to, people used to have to handwrite their resumes and things. I mean, people would, I guess they would type them, but I don't know. There was a time when, as part of the HR process, you would have some handwritten things. And that's who she did work for, freelance. It was like HR people and companies. And she would look at people's handwriting and analyze it. So she didn't really do it as like a party trick, even though everyone always wanted her to. Like my friends or everyone were always, oh, can you analyze my boyfriend's handwriting? Or so. She refused. She would never do that. But handwriting is like the way where you put the dot on your I and how you cross your T. That's the kind of stuff. Do you come all the way through with the Y and the G? These are the things that she looks at. Nowadays, I can't imagine there's much handwriting going on. My kids go to classical schools, my younger two, and they do have to do a lot of handwriting. But I can see with my older kids and even with myself, my handwriting is atrocious, always was. And I hardly ever write with my hands. So anyway. Got distracted there on the handwriting thing, but that's my parents. My mom is 80 and she's just a great lady. I quote her a ton.
That's amazing. That's so amazing. Lara, what about you? What were mom and dad's actual jobs?
My mom was a saleswoman. My parents were divorced, and I lived with my father. So, and part of the reason he had custody is because my mom was in sales and she was just traveling all the time, and that was really no place to, no environment to raise a young child. But my father was, he got his start and spent a good chunk of his years working for NASA and as a contractor for NASA. And in fact, this is his big claim to fame. The Voyager satellites, the radio antenna that works on the satellites, he and his team built that. So the reason we still can talk to the Voyagers, even though they are out in interstellar space right now, is because that antenna, my dad and his team, they managed to build something that was really going to last. So that was him. And then, after that, he got into defense, and everybody in the DC area is out tied to the government or defense in some way. So yeah, that's.
How do you reconcile, Nina, you first, just what your parents did and anything with what you do now? Because I have to imagine you've thought about this. I know you quote your mom a lot. So what's the through line there?
That's a good question. I will just say my parents were always my biggest cheerleaders. So anything I wrote, I had anything published, I mean, they would share it with their friends. They loved it. They always told me I was a good writer. So I think it's nothing to do with their jobs or anything, just their support and interest in everything I do. They were really cheerleaders. And so I guess I wasn't shy about putting things out into the world because the very first people that would need to cheer it on did.
I love that answer. And I love that answer just because we all need those people. So how much better is it if it's your parents, right?
Yes, exactly.
I gotta step in here. I actually had the exact opposite experience. My parents, yeah, and which is probably funny to hear once we start talking about our careers. But yeah, my father was very proud of my writing after it had already been done, but sometimes took a little bit too. It came. How do I want to play? How do I put it? He was my first experience with the red pen, and he thought he was helping. He thought he was trying to make it better, but that's not the role of parents. The role of parents is to support and even if it's gobbledygook, I think, unless somebody asks you for help, give support and encouragement. It's sometimes the part that matters at those young ages. So, but obviously I persisted with it. So, yeah.
Do you feel like that last thing, do you bring that to your own kids? Do you think about that a lot? Unless they ask for help, give support. That's easy to say, hard to do too.
Yes, I do. I do try to only give help when it's asked for. I think that's a lot easier as my kids get older, because they're more capable and independent, and I can see that they can do more things on their own. And it's certainly more. It's easier for me to do with my younger child. I have two kids, so with my daughter, I just. It comes more natural. I don't know if it's a mother-daughter thing. I don't know if she's just more independent. I don't know if it's just the first kid always gets the rough end of the rope, right? The oldest child is a bit of a test pancake. The first pancake always comes out a little rough around the edges sometimes.
Sure.
Still just as tasty, still just as wonderful to eat. But I think
Nina, it's two parts. Number one, you got more kids, so you got more stacks in your pancakes, I guess. But also just How do you take the mom and dad lessons for what worked or what you think is good with you? How do you translate that as a mom?
Well, I should first say that it's not like they were super excited at first when I wanted to be a teacher, which is what I was before a writer. I, all through college, was headed to law school. I was like pre-law. I was like really directed. And then I went abroad my junior year to Santiago and just had kind of a strange year and was doing research in Spanish on the role of women in the political parties there, which were, at that time in the late 90s, it was only a democracy for like 10 years because they'd had a long run at dictatorship, basically. And I ended that time there. I'd gained a lot of weight. I was just like not happy. I did not want to go to law school. I didn't even want to write the honors thesis that I was doing that research for. And you can just graduate with a regular, with your major. You don't, but to graduate at a certain level, you needed to have the thesis. And I was like, well, I don't even want to go to law school. And if I don't really want to go to law school, I don't even need to write this honors thesis. I mean, I did an about face. I'm not going to tell you my parents were thrilled with that. And I decided I wanted to be an English teacher. And they were like, kind of unimpressed. They were just like, really? After all that? Like, they just were not excited about that. So, but they still did support it. And I got married quite young. So I was kind of like moved on from my parents' house. I was 23 when I got married. So, which just is not something I planned in college, just how things went. That's a long way to say that once I was in the writing field, like I was already a married person. I mean, I didn't really need my parents to support or approve, but they were really into it by then. Not so into the teaching. When I moved into writing, they were like excited about that because I think they had high hopes for me. And I'm glad I didn't go to law school. Actually, most people I know who went to law school, a lot of them are not practicing. I guess the women, I should say. I mean, some of the men I know are. And for whatever that's worth, it didn't. I'm glad I didn't do those. I was good at school. That's why I wanted to go to law school. I was like, oh, I'm good at school. I can do 3 more years of school. So I did just 1 more year of school to get my master's in education. Okay, so backing up with my kids, I think I realized because of the kind of winding path I took, and my mom also, like I said, did so many different things. I didn't even name them all. I sort of accept that we don't always know where things are going to go. And so I try not to get overly invested in anything my kids are doing, really. Sports, anything. I'm kind of like low investment in their stuff because they change their mind so much. So what am I going to get attached? Like it lets them change their mind because the whole family isn't invested in this team or this sport, this activity, this skill set. It's like we change.
I have to respond because there's so many things that you said that I'm just, yes, pumping my fist internally. So first off, I feel like we could be twins because I had a very similar experience nearing the end of my undergraduate career. I was excellent at school. I was very, very good at mathematics and theory and the story of science, the language of science. But I had enough experience in the lab setting and going out on observing runs to get kind of an existential crisis about the actual process of science, of doing science. So I like math. Turns out I don't like science all that much because science is so much about the scientific method and the rigor of performing an experiment over and over and over again, having those controls, having those, just there's a process. It's a process. It's not like a set of knowledge. So 6 months before I got to the end of my undergraduate, we were applying for grad schools. I got really good grades. So I had a full ride to multiple places. And I turned it all down to become a writer. Wow. Freelance writer. Now, I wasn't married at that time. I was still very young. I was 20, 21. My parents were. So they were perfect. But at that point, it didn't matter because I was, not in their house anymore. I was doing my own thing. So, I decided I was going to become a freelance writer, and that's what I did. It's funny how successful you can be when your entire life depends on that success happening. So, I started making pitches and I made my first sale within, a month or two. And then I was paying my bills, all of my bills within, just a few months. So, but that was back when you could do that with just a few features in some print magazine.
Yeah,
You paid
'cause
pretty nice.
it was print, right? Like
Mhm.
internet, the whole different thing.
Yeah. Click. But then what you're saying about being a low investment parent, I'm sure some folks who are listening are going to kind of recoil, but oh yeah. Oh, that's exactly the way you've got to go. You've got to allow your kids to explore their curiosities, and, go in the direction that they want to go in, because if you try to stop them, oh, it's just going to cause more heartburn for everyone involved. I don't know if it's just my kids who are really headstrong in that way, but I think that has always been our kind of approach to parenting. And it's made for very stubborn, stiff-necked kids, but at the same time, they're the most competent ones in the class. They're the ones who are leaders, right, in their own way. So, we don't do, we're not like, also, what am I trying to say? The facts that we're not doing a million sports or a million programs or anything means that we get more time as a family to spend together. And that has always been something that, I worked a lot of very long and intensive jobs in my career. And I recently left one, not so recently anymore. But that was a big motivating factor, is that I hadn't had that time with my kids when they were young, and I didn't want to miss it now when they were still young enough to want to spend time with me.
I got to react to that. One of the articles that I got a lot of flack on at one point, really more from like some of my extended family, and some commenters. It was back in Huffington Post days when you could have articles in there. And anyway, I wrote something along the lines of parents don't need to attend every game. Like this is just, and I still believe that. And maybe part of that is having 4 kids. I can't physically be at everybody's stuff. And also, we did activities for the kids. They do activities, but we keep Shabbat as much as possible. And so that really does limit the travel sports. And we didn't want the kids to resent it or feel like trapped in it. And so there were times we let them choose, certain tournaments, or my girls have really gotten into theater. And if you're going to be a theater person, it's like we had to make a choice. Like, are we going to not let them do this because there's so many Friday nights, and so we let them do some, but like my husband and I won't go to the Friday night shows, so it's like we've kind of gotten to the point, like, you can go and we're not going to keep you from it, but like we're not going to go to the Friday night. We'll go to the Thursday night, we'll go to the Sunday, we'll go to the Saturday night, but we won't go to like a Saturday matinee. I'll occasionally take one of my boys to like a Saturday tournament because I don't want to leave somebody else's parent responsible for my kid the whole day. But it's an exception. Like, they can't do a travel sport that's every weekend. Like, they can't. And so it has helped keep our family life doable with 4 kids, because we don't have 4 kids in travel soccer. It just wouldn't work. But I do know a lot of parents, and I don't mean this as a judgment. I know it's going to sound this way, but they have sacrificed a certain part of their adult life to like the altar of kids sports. And we just don't. We won't.
I love that you won't go to a Friday night performance. That's, again, I think there's probably some people listening who are going to react negatively to that. But I think that's a beautiful boundary to set. And also to allow your kids to make that choice for themselves, because they are going to be making that choice when they're adults. How they want to keep Shabbat, and how it means, what Shabbat will mean to them. I think that's lovely, and kudos to you for doing that. That's really powerful.
We had to get there because when they were younger, we had this vision like, oh, we're going to like completely keep Shabbat 100% and everyone's going to be with us. And as we got older, we saw, and they got older, we saw there was going to be pushback on that. And I think my kids are really, actually, my oldest is much more observant than we are. Um, they like it. And I think part of that was not trapping them in it, like letting them choose. And my husband and I are both more religious than how we grew up. And then here, our oldest of 4 is more religious than we are. So I feel like we're doing something, if right means you want your kids to hold on to some of your values and ways, then I think we're doing something right, I guess. So far, 1 out of 4.
1 out of 4. Not a bad stack of pancakes. Lara, if you had to guess, build the CV. Like, what do you think Nina's up to today in life? You got a little bit of a taste. Take a wild guess. And
Well,
as wrong as me pronouncing your last name.
So I think that Nina, you're obviously a writer and content creator because you mentioned doing a podcast as well. I hope that you are involved somehow in Jewishly writing because, gosh, we need some good some more. You can never have too many Jewish voices out there. But yeah, that's what I would guess.
All right, before you admit, Nina, do you want to guess on Lara? You want to throw your best shot out there? And then we'll break these down?
It's interesting because at first I had scientist stuff in my, that because there was so much science talk, but then you said you really don't like science and that you became a freelance writer. But what was the content? That's what I am curious. And so, like, did you do science like for the regular person? Did you, like, I'm wondering if your writing has been interviewing or somehow presenting information for a regular people that has heavy scientific content. And maybe you're an author of books too, is what I'm thinking. I don't know.
Oh, this is the fun.
Fun.
Yeah, this
I
is
like
the fun
this.
part of it, though. Good. Let's reveal a little bit. Go ahead, Lara. You go first. How do you
Well-
describe the work you're doing today?
So right now, right this particular moment, I am a freelance marketing and communications consultant. I'm doing some writing on the side, just some personal Substack stuff. However, I am probably best known to the audience as the former editor-in-chief of Zetify, which is a publication focusing on ETFs and exchange-traded fund universe related things. I worked I was a journalist first for commodities, actually, is how I got into it. And then, I stumbled my way into the ETF industry, and I was covering the ETF industry for about.
Wait, what's ETF?
So an ETF.
This is a non-finance which
Oh
makes
yeah,
it
I have
even better.
no idea. I was an English teacher. If I, as I said.
This is great. Okay, so ETF means exchange traded fund. Are you familiar with what a mutual fund is?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's a mutual fund
Okay.
that can be traded on an exchange like a stock, basically. And they're relatively new to the universe. They only came into existence in, I think, 1996 or 93. It is the early 90s. And for a long time, this structure was not as well adopted, not as well understood. So I made a pretty penny over the course of my career explaining how these things work, how they were different from mutual funds, what was inside them, how you could use them to build a retirement portfolio and so on. It was great. And then I stepped away from it for multiple reasons. And I've been refocusing. I've been refocusing my efforts now on the local New Orleans Jewish community. Jewish community here is small but mighty, and unlike anywhere else in the country, anywhere else in the world. And I could probably talk for 4 hours about how marvelous the Jewish community is here. So you gotta come down to New Orleans and come for Shabbat dinner, and we'll have a fun time.
Love it. I noticed
yeah,
your
it's
high
really cool.
necklace. Like I realized that was one thing we had in common. Yes.
Thank you. Okay,
So pretty.
So this is my bat signal. Like, people who know, right?
Yeah.
But others I've gotten, oh, what a cute cat. Isn't that an adorable elephant? What elephant? much. So
Yeah, I love that.
thank you.
Okay, are you ready for
I'm ready
me?
for this.
Um,
You ready for
I
this?
like that you took your math skills and turned them into a good profit. Good for you. So after I was an English teacher, I started having kids. Well, while I was an English teacher, started having kids, and at some point after kid number 2, I would cry to my husband and I'd say, I should have been a writer. That's all I ever wanted to be. The only reason I became an English teacher is because I love literature. I love writing, and it just seemed like a preposterous thing to say you wanted to be a writer. It just didn't seem like a real job, and so I was like, I'll be a teacher. And I actually really liked.
Told me you can never make any money as a
Right.
writer. Why are you doing this?
Well, I won't say I can't say I've made a lot of money as a writer, but I liked teaching. I like teaching. I still teach adult writing classes here in Minneapolis, but that's I'll get to that in a second. I was home with the kids. So I had 2 at that time. My husband was like, "So be a writer." I'm like, "Oh, like it's so easy. You can just be a writer." And he was actually very supportive. I mean, he was saying this in a supportive way, like just start. And I was actually really interested at that time in fiction, and I wanted to write a novel. And my first novel that I never published, thank God. But the topic of it has stuck with me all these years, and it was called The Friends of Ivy Stein. And it was about 3 adult women who were all dropped by the same friend at a different point, and Ivy was the friend. So Ivy had dumped her high school best friend, her college best friend, her young mom best friend. I was in my 20s when I wrote this. And it got close to getting an agent, and the agent liked one of the storylines of one of the 3 friends. She's like, well, what if you just wrote a whole book on this one storyline? I was like, okay. So I spent an entire another year, had another kid, wrote that book. And at the end of it, she's like, that still doesn't work. Advice for writers out there: you should never write something for an agent you're not signed with. That was dumb. I turned a lot of those chapters into short stories that were published in literary magazines and whatnot. And this is when blogging started to get big. But I was like, oh, I don't want to blog. I don't want to blog. I'm a literary writer. I'm a fiction writer. And then I had a guest post on a friend of mine. There was a big blog called Scary Mommy back in the day. That's my college good friend, Jill Smokler. And she had me write just a guest post for her. Within an hour, it had 100 comments. And I was like, oh, that's fun. Much more so than sitting alone writing a novel note and ever's going to read it.
Right. It's dopamine straight to your veins.
I think I'm still, riding that wave because that was probably 2010. And I went from, I don't want to blog to I want one yesterday. And I immediately got into that whole scene and wrote a lot of articles. I did go through a period of time during this where I wrote for a lot of Jewish publications to answer that question. I don't do it anymore for a lot of reasons. And nowadays for even more reasons. But I stopped writing about it even before all the current stuff. But I wrote for the Jewish Daily Forward, all this stuff. My own religious adventure is kind of different, and it does end up being a little critical of my upbringing and the Jewish education I had. And so I was always getting into arguments with people. I mean, I would get into a whole thing. I've written all kinds of things about the 13 years of Hebrew school and confirmation I had. And then I got to college and I had no basic Jewish literacy, and I was bitter about it. I'm still bitter about it. To go through 13 years of Hebrew school and then get to college, and I don't even know the full Kiddush, which is the prayer over the wine. This is for the listeners.
Hurts my heart.
What was I doing for 13 years? I obviously had a bat mitzvah, I memorized on a tweet.
You were getting really good at writing your aleph.
I mean, I guess, but it's I felt, I think, ashamed. I got to college. I was friends with a lot more observant type people, at least people. And I didn't know, I knew very little. And so I kind of went on my own journey then. And I wrote a lot about that. But then after a certain amount of years, I'm just okay, I've told all those stories. I have nothing else to say about it. I don't want to feel like I'm scolding people or, right. It's a fine line. So I stopped that, and I had a parenting column for a little bit. And then my oldest was 10. I'd written something about his piano recital and had performed it in a show called Listen to Your Mother. Hundreds, probably 700 people. This thing was on YouTube. And it was really a great story about his resiliency and how he had to keep starting over. It was he had to start over 10 times, and he just didn't bother him. But I was, of course, sweating and there goes my low investment parenting. I was jumping out of my seat, losing my mind. And it was it was a humor essay. And a friend came over for a walk, said to my son, oh, hey, Sam, that was a great story your mom told about your piano recital. And he was like, you told the story about the piano recital? And I was like, and that's it for the parenting topic. So we were done with the Jewish topic, done with the parenting topic. And this was 2014. Somebody offered me a friendship advice column. And I'd written a lot of freelance things and other things about friendship, but as we know, I'm not a therapist. I'm not a social worker. I'm just a writer with a deep interest in a topic. And I've always loved that topic. That's what the first novel was about. I've always been into that topic. And I've basically been on the friendship beat ever since then. And my podcast, which I started 4 years ago based on the column, is called Dear Nina, Conversations About Friendship. And I'm really deep in it. Matt knows, like, I am deep in the friendship topic. And I still teach writing classes here. And I'm starting to teach podcasting classes. Like, I like to teach. I do. Like, I'm a teacher. I love that part of it. I just don't want to have 150 essays to grade from students who are all cheating anyway. So I'm glad I got out of that gig a long time ago.
I am very inspired and impressed by the fact that you were able to step away from a successful beat, like the parenting beat that did you so well for so long, because gosh, is that hard, but you have to protect your family. We don't have our kids' faces online. I'm very intentional about not posting any identifying details about my kids. Weird little tidbits I might post on Twitter or on Substack or anything, but nothing that would allow anybody to find them or that they would be able to find themselves in what I'm writing. I mean, they might know, but nothing that could hopefully embarrass them later on.
Right.
Because
They don't want to embarrass them. Exactly.
it lives forever on the internet. And it's so funny. I actually wrote an advice column too for a while. There was this gaming website. So when I first started, your first instinct was correct. I actually did, when I started as a freelance writer, I was a science writer. I tried, that was obviously the way that I should go, right? And I did make a few sales that way, but I very quickly, very, very quickly realized that the money was in video game journalism. So I have always been kind of a gamer. I like video games and don't really get much time to play them anymore with kids. But, that time I had all the time in the world. So I was a games journalist for quite some time. And one of the websites I wrote for wanted an advice column for gamers. And that's what I did. I advised people on their marriages and their workplace and friendship. And it was fun. It didn't last for more than like a year or so. But gosh, it was a lot of fun.
It's fun. I love writing in. It's the exact voice that you're really taught not to write in, but for an advice column, you are supposed to write in, which is like saying you. It's really a lot of fun. Before I had the friendship advice column, I had for a little while on a writing website, an advice column for writers on how to use Twitter. I was a really early adopter on Twitter, and that was fun. And that, again, it was that was 2010, 2000. That's not when Twitter first came out, but it wasn't as known for writers then. People didn't know what to do with it, like how to sell on it and all that. And
I'm so sad about the death of Twitter.
Yeah, I know. I used to love it so much. Yeah. I kept my account. Did you keep your? I mean, I kept my account because I personally don't like to get on like the bandwagons that the whole writing community can be so, to me, I don't know. It's everyone makes like group think decisions of we're all leaving Twitter, we're all leaving that. I've seen so much of that come and go. I never delete my accounts. I'm like, forget it. So I still have an account. I don't use it almost at all, but
I'm sure you still have a MySpace account. Right,
that I never did. I never did MySpace. Because remember, I was writing novels and I was like a literary person back then.
That's true. Yes, I do still occasionally use my X. I can't call it my Twitter account. I will. So, like you, I have dabbled in fiction writing. I have an alias, which nobody here is allowed to know. And I made a few sales. Just short stories, and I had tried to very close to landing an agent a couple of times, but after, and I'm sorry, I don't know if I should I don't know how real I want to get here. Like how I feel like we cracked open the Jewish thing.
I know.
So
Anywhere I go, it's so I sometimes try it. I like say to myself, like, don't make it about that. And it's like, I can't help myself.
it's hard not to, because it's such a cornerstone of who you are. But so I'm going to say something that's probably going to be a little too real for some folks. But after October 7th, I was a romance writer. The romance community lost its mind.
The
Like,
whole writing community. I mean,
the whole writing community, the whole publishing community.
all the performative stuff. You probably don't want to go there, Matt. And we probably shouldn't go deep into it. But yeah, I can't really handle like I don't talk about it on my show.
I haven't been able to pick up I haven't been able to write since then. And that's the worst thing, right? Like that's exactly the point. I know I should write. I know that like if I stop writing, if I let my voice be silenced, that wins. That hate wins. But I just can't get there because my heart broke in half. On that day, and then it continued to break over and over and over again by the communities that I trusted and the people I looked up to. And so I'm hoping eventually I'll be able to kind of get back to it. It hurts.
It does. My son was there that whole year. My kids take gap years. So my daughter's about to graduate high school. She's going to take a gap year in Israel. My son was on his gap year in 2023. And that was rough time. It's a rough time. He was not like in dangerous areas, but still, that was
oh my gosh, was he still in Israel when that?
Yeah, he was there the whole year. Yeah, he got there in August, and
freaking.
I was, but ironically, right? Everyone was really unsafe October 6th and before. We just didn't know, right?
Yeah,
it's just never a good time. I have one relative who gives me a very hard time. Like, why do you insist on sending your kids there? There's never a good time to go. Well, what are we never gonna go? There's literally never a good time to go. So we send them. We go. We went to visit him.
I can't say it's any less dangerous here than it is there.
If you put a reporter from every city and every country in one little town, if you put them just in Minneapolis, like people would never come here. Like if there were that many reporters reporting. Now, I'm not saying it's not like a war zone. It is, but like I'm not sending my kids, to Gaza.
I live in the murder capital of the U.S.
Yeah.
Like, be any worse than New Orleans. So, yeah, it's Anyway, we're probably getting a little
way off
deep for your
topic.
But
no, but it's close to heart. So I'll step it back, and I want to keep it close to heart on this because this is one of the things I definitely wanted to hit with both of you. This teaching and advice overlap. You both have the teacher tendency, and then the writing about advice. There's layers to that. It's not just like you're charging into a room and like demanding people listen to what I have to say in some awful authoritative way. But you balance this parental guidance. I like to teach and I like to give advice in some useful way without being overbearing. What the hell is that? Where does that come from? Like,
it's confident. It's a Jewish female.
Is that what it is? This is part of the intro.
Yeah, I don't know. Are we going to get like a million hate comments on this YouTube? I don't know like how many viewers you have, but I was just thinking, I never talk about it.
Break the scales for anything I've done ever on this channel.
I mean, I don't know, Matt. It's
Bring
interesting.
That's fine.
I never, I purposely don't talk about it on the podcast. Like, it's not a secret I'm Jewish. That comes up a lot. I just don't talk about October 7th, all that. People want me to do episodes on that. I know that didn't answer your shit, but I was just, now I'm like in a worry spiral that this is gonna like turn into like a whole hateful comments. I mean, it's like the reason you're not writing about it too, Lara. Like, I don't know. Okay, well, I guess edit accordingly. But anyway, how did the teacher advice thing come up? I don't know. I'm so comfortable in that voice though. I really am.
Why? Where can you trace it back to something? Is there like, are you holding court at the middle school lunch table? Is it something when you're in Spain? Where's it come from?
I mean, I think I've always been comfortable giving advice. People come to me for advice a lot. I think people always came to me for advice.
Okay.
But I also think my advice is not authoritative. I very quick to say that I'm not sure, but here are some thoughts. I'm not like apologetic about my advice, but I always remind people I'm not a therapist because that's important because I'm not. And I purposely do not take on like therapy speak. I don't like that. And it's not my, it's all over the internet and no one needs me to add to it. So I don't say, it's just real. I'm very practical. I'm just a practical person. And that's kind of my brand for the friendship thing. It's just practical. I will tell you the thing that is probably going on that you might not want to hear. It's like the way I see it, but people like it. That's what they come to me for.
I think people are drawn to somebody who sounds like they know what they're talking about. It's just, we all feel a little lost, and we want someone to tell us, to pat us on the back and say, it's going to be okay. And here's what you need to do. Right. And that's invaluable kind of support. But I'm going to say something that's probably not going to make me too many friends, but it's very true to who I am. I just like being the smartest person in the room.
I get that.
I really like being the one that people depend on for having more knowledge and kind of the institutional knowledge, right? It was such an asset as a journalist to always want to get to the heart of the story and to get to the deeper part of the story. I would go deeper than most other people would on a particular topic. I would sit there and just do research and read all the prospectuses and read every single page of an SEC filing because I wanted to be the expert. I wanted to know more than anybody else, and then I could communicate that outward. You said something that was very astute earlier, Nina. Taking science and explaining it to the masses, it's kind of the same thing that I've been doing my entire career. It's just not astrophysics. It is Wall Street or now, I do a lot of Torah study. I teach Torah studies a lot. So, it's teaching Torah or teaching, the Talmud. So, I
love that you're doing that. Where are you doing that? Like at a synagogue or like a
at our synagogue. We have lay leadership sometimes leave the Torah studies, the weekly Torah studies, and I'll pop in and do it.
Right, yeah.
Stick. And I love that it's accessible to everybody. You don't have to have a fancy degree or anything. You can just do it. But I think to the reason that I like being the most the expert, it has to do with imposter syndrome, right? Because I feel like I'm behind everybody else, so I have to work harder to be smarter than everybody else so that I can earn my place in the room. So I've been in male-dominated spaces entire career, even when I was in college, right? I was the only woman in my year of physics and the year above me and the year below me. I was the only woman in that degree program for 3 years. And, physics, astrophysics, doesn't have a ton of women in it. The most successful, games journalists, there weren't a lot of female games journalists. In fact, right when I was writing, I don't know if y'all are familiar with the Gamergate phenomenon. Yeah, you heard about that. Matt, are you familiar?
Sounds familiar, but I couldn't tell you.
Oh, it was horrible. So, in the early 2000, I know it must have been like 2010, maybe even a little bit earlier than that. There was this witch hunt that came for female games journalists and women in the games industry. That were basically, it was very, it was horrible. They would go after, oh, you just only got this job because you're a woman, or you're sleeping with the producer, and all these sorts of things. And the tagline was, it's about ethics in games journalism. It all comes back to ethics in games journalism. That's what people advise. But it's, I got out of games journalism and didn't look back, largely because of Gamergate. I think Gamergate, the term, came from particular scandal that erupted on one of these message boards, maybe Reddit or the predecessor to Reddit. But I remember there was a woman named Anita Sarkeesian who did a video series about women's portrayal in video games. How it's all scantily clad ladies and, chainmail bikinis and stuff like that. And boy, did the internet erupt in hate. She got swatted multiple times. She had death threats, and it became everybody got swatted. Everybody got death threats who were, who was female or was supporting women. So I got out of that just as it was starting to hit kind of fever pitch, and I moved to Wall Street coverage. So I forget why we got on this topic, but.
I mean, this whole thing of just like fighting against, if you want to be the smartest person in the room, like this.
I feel like it didn't have a place, right? It didn't belong. And, it took me many, many, many years, not even until I think I had kids, to find a place for myself in the world where I felt like I finally belonged. Like I finally deserved to be there. And that place was being my kid's mom. Like that was so natural. And it's like, this is my place. This is this family that I'm creating that with my husband. I don't have to search for where I belong out there anymore. I belong here. And that was a gift. I've changed very, very dramatically ever since.
I struggle with the expert thing because sometimes when I'm a guest on a podcast, it's a natural introduction. It's kind of the reason they're having me on. And they'll say, oh, friendship expert, and then I, go into the imposter thing, even though I've been writing about this topic for over a decade. And so I'll describe myself as a writer who studies friendship, which seems it's like a little more of a mouthful, but I don't like to call myself a friendship expert because I think because I'm not a therapist like that, and I'm not sure even a therapist could be a friendship expert, but I hear the voices of like, she's not an expert, so if I don't say I'm an expert, then I feel like there's nothing to be defensive about. But now that it's been over a decade, I'm like, should I start saying that? I don't know. And I don't know if it matters to be an expert, or I get treated like one. I just don't know. I do not use the title myself. I'll say enthusiast. I'll say any number of things, but I almost never say expert.
I think we can give you permission here. You unlock that permission for yourself to call yourself a friendship expert.
The thing I always tell myself in this, because of the imposter syndrome thing, which is very real, and anybody's trying to make anything, you have to like grapple with that. Like the opposite of that I always try to remind myself, I'm like, you need to swing off this imposter syndrome thing and I call it I'm the poster boy syndrome, with like the worst people who are like, I am the authority. I am the ultimate expert. You're like, just 3 steps away from I'm the poster boy for whatever this thing is. Then we're good.
Yeah, then right. Like I like to keep a humble place. Like there should be some humility in it. That I don't know everything. I have not heard everything, and people have such deep psychology. So people are starting to want the personal friendship advice. Well, they've wanted that for a long time, and I've always been like, I don't do that. I don't do that. I don't do that. Finally, I was like, I end up answering things on like Instagram, so I was taking my time. I finally made a form. You guys will be impressed. 2 different things I did to answer the issue of I do not want to be giving free advice beyond what I already do on the podcast. And so I made a form called Friendship Strategy Sessions. I will only do up to 3 per person because I really say right on there, I'm not a therapist. More than 3 hours, 3 separate hours. I'll do 3 sessions per person. I charge for it, and I charge a lot. And it's something I can send people if they say, oh, I have this issue. And I'll just be like, hi, this is something that you can sign up for, meaning pay for. And most people would not take me up on it, but that's okay. That form is for me to say, no, thank you. I don't want to have this exchange. I don't want to be rude. I don't want to turn them off of being a podcast listener. But some people have taken me up on it. And I only do 3 because I feel like beyond 3, let's go find a therapist. That seems fair. I do the same thing for podcast help. Lots of people coming to me, oh, can you help me start my podcast? Somebody asked me recently, can we hop on a Zoom for a few minutes and teach me about podcasting?
I just pick your brain for a few minutes.
A few minutes. I I couldn't even tell you about microphones in just 2 minutes. Like it's so many. So I recorded an episode on how to start a podcast. It's just the basic. And I say, here's an episode I did. And if you want further, and I made a separate thing, kind of like the friendship strategy session, I made a podcast strategy session. You can hire me per hour and I will certainly sit on a Zoom with you, but I'm not doing it for free. I mean, it's so time consuming. So those are little things I've done to monetize the stuff I like. And they're sort of like teaching. I think of it as teaching, not therapy. And
do you find that your friends, because you are the friendship enthusiast, friendship expert, do your friends start to relate to you? Like, she might,
But I like, well, they ask advice. Yeah, and I don't mind. And I mean, I like that, but they did that before too. And yeah, they definitely come to me for advice. An interesting dynamic with my friends is, and as a writer, you maybe didn't have this as much with your friends because you were writing about a topic that was so maybe not relatable to them if they aren't finance people. Right.
I got investment and give me investment advice all the time. Honestly, I'm not a financial advisor.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I'm not. Yeah, it's the same thing. Like, and I can't tell you if this stock is going to go up or this particular ETF is going to go up, but I would get it all the time, especially from family. Like,
but would they read your things? Would they actually read your work?
They would.
Okay.
They would, but none of my work was, buy QQQ right now or else you're going to miss out. It was much more about the structure of how these things were, how they came together and the legal aspects and like the stuff I'm most proud of, the stuff that I felt really set myself and my brand apart, were those deep dives into the things that had nothing to do with the stock market. It was more about the structure of markets and how investments are made, how the sausage gets made, kind of stuff. So,
I love these boundaries for advice in both of those categories because it's so funny once you put yourself out there, even if you're not the poster boy or the person who's the expert, you still get these solicitations and you actually have to figure out a way to handle those or else you got nothing.
Ethical element to it too.
100%. It's the I'm not a therapist thing or choosing not to use therapy language, which my God, can you do that video?
I really should. I should do an episode.
I think you should do that one. I will gladly share that one with
like
others.
Everyone's not a narcissist. Everyone's not toxic. Like I have a lot to say about that. People, everything people write to me though, that I have this toxic friend. I'm like, do you have a toxic friend? Do you have a friend who like did one rude thing to you? Like that they're not necessarily toxic. It's that people have taken on this language.
All right, I'm doing this for both of you, and then we're going to notes, but only because there's just two things that I can't lose track of here. So Nina, you just had a absolutely lovely piece. I don't know what to call the podcast on NPR or whatever that was just, wow, what a fantastic way fabulous. To like, I want to send this to a ton of people. You said, and I know it's not your quote, but I've been dying to ask you this specifically. There are people who never disappoint us, and they are called acquaintances.
Well, listen, I'm actually going to tell you who's Lara. Oh yeah, sorry, I shouldn't skip over it. It is a quote I use a lot because one of my favorite guests I've ever had, who is one of my many Orthodox Jewish women educators in my life. She's like a big speaker. She has several books out. Her name's Ruchi Koval. She lives in Cleveland. And she was on my podcast. The topic was great. The topic was how to handle the situation, which many of us get ourselves in, where somebody else is more interested in the friendship than you are. Each of my episodes is a tiny little topic like that. So when people pitch me and they're like, I want to come on and talk about why friendship's important. I'm like, nope, that's not an episode. That's what my whole thing is. Like, it needs to be really, really specific. So this was, how do you handle it when you want to be a nice person, you don't want to be a jerk, but you don't want to have coffee with this person once a week or even once a month. Maybe you could handle once a year, maybe, but like that's a hard thing to communicate. So these are the little social skills I deal with. And I don't even know how we got into this quote really, because that's almost a different topic, but I've used it a lot, which is this idea of having to just accept the fact that you are going to get upset at your close friends and they're going to get upset at you because you're close. You have a relationship, and the people you don't get upset at and the people who don't get upset at you are acquaintances. And that's okay. That's a different category, though. That's a different category. You're going to have conflict with your actual friends. Anyway, yeah, that was Ruchi Koval.
I'm just sitting with that. I gotta sit with that for
You
for
will.
a minute.
I've been sitting with that one for
Wow.
weeks. And yeah.
It's so true.
They liked it on
Man,
NPR too. Yeah.
the good thing you have an advice column.
Right?
Yeah.
Right. Laura, we're going to pitch you for the story later on, the science aspect of closeness and friction and whatever the natural phenomenon is. Okay, Laura, but for you, the one that this whole heroine's journey thing, like that was something I thought I knew. And then when you wrote about this on your Substack, I don't know, a year ago or whatever that was, 6 months ago, I was like, I didn't understand this in this way. And this, I don't know if it's just being a guy or whatever else. That kicked my butt. Nina, do you know the heroine's journey? Are you familiar with this?
I mean, I've studied that kind of stuff too as a writing teacher and a writer, but I mean, I'm writing down as a note to myself to remember to find Lara's Substack later. I have one as well. I was kind of an early Substack of Doctor too. It's funny. I don't think of myself as techie, but I think I end up early on these things.
You found the ones that lasted.
Mm-hmm. What's that Twitter?
I have a couple of Substacks that I've been engaging in. And they're the one that's under my name, Lara Crigger at Substack.com, is only updated every once in a while. But I've got some other ones too. So yeah, what was your question?
Tell us about the heroine's journey. I want Nina just to hear you. I know this is lovely to have a whole episode on just this topic. But I was just,
We should have a whole podcast on this. I think
it ought to have one.
and maybe we could watch Nina's first episode about how to start a podcast.
Yeah, there you go.
So the heroine's journey, everybody's heard of the hero's journey at this point. The hero goes out, into the world, collects his friends, collects his weapons, and descends a mountain. At the top of the mountain is the big bad that he has to fight. But the big bad's also kind of his dad, and like it's a whole thing. And then he comes back down the mountain, changed and transformed and more powerful as a man. It's the structure of so many brilliant stories out there from, obviously Star Wars is the one that everybody reaches to, but I mean, the hero's journey is a story structure that works.
Odysseus. Odysseus. I mean, there's a million of them. Yeah.
Star Wars, Odysseus, the thing.
Oh, do you not think Odysseus one?
Okay, yeah.
Man leaves
But-
home on a journey, has to make his way back.
But the Iliad is a hero's journey. Heroine's
Okay.
journey. I think the
Interesting.
Iliad is a heroine's journey. So a heroine's journey is not quite. If the hero's journey is a mountain that the hero must climb, the heroine's journey is a pit that they have to descend into and come back out. It's the people who've done the writing on this have likened one of the oldest stories ever told, the saga of Inanna visiting her sister Ereshkigal in the underworld. I'm probably botching those names. Inanna was the goddess of war in Sumerian mythos, and Ereshkigal was the goddess of the underworld. And so Inanna has to go through, I think her husband gets killed, and so she's trying to go rescue him. So she goes through these various gates as she descends in the underworld. And she starts out with all these trappings, these clothes and these weapons, these items that she thinks are going to help her. But as she descends through the gates, every time she goes through a gate, one of those things gets stripped away from her until she's at the underworld, completely naked, right? Like has nothing to guide her. And then when she's there, she dies. She her sister kills her. And then it's the voice of a friend, of a close, trusted friend, that brings her back to life. And as she is brought back to life, she goes back through the gates, changed, transformed. She realizes in her death moment, which is really the midpoint of the story. It's not the end of the story. It's the middle point. When she's at that lowest point, she realizes she didn't need all of these trappings, all these weapons or anything. She had the power within her all along to solve her problems. And so she makes it back out of the underworld and in one piece and is changed, transformed, has her power, has her, the gifts that are naturally meant to be hers. So this is a story, and told it very, very quickly. If you want kind of a step-by-step breakdown, I have this epic length post on my Substack, stepping through one of my favorite heroine's journey stories, which is The Terminator. It's a lead that is one of my favorites. But this story structure is the basis of many romance novels, Titanic. It's also a story that mimics a lot of female experiences because it's cyclical. Like you don't, you come back to the start, a changed person, a stronger person, and you share the knowledge that you've learned throughout your journey with other people, and that inspires them to go on their own heroine's journey. And so the cycle keeps on going. It's very much the way that women throughout time have related with one another. It's not a combative sort of story where there's a big bad. I mean, there can be a big bad. Of course, there can be a big bad, but it's not about confrontation with that other person. It's more about discovering your power within. So it's also a story that works well for faith and religion, addiction recovery, and that sort of journey that people go on. You hear people talk about hitting their rock bottom, and that's really where the journey, their ascent begins from there. So it's not as well known of a story structure as the hero's journey. One is not better than the other, and men and women can both go on heroes and heroines' journeys. But it's one that I think is starting to get a little bit more attention, especially from literary circles. I've seen a few writers write about how to use the heroine's journey to map to hero and fiction efforts, and it's one that I think really resonates with me and my experiences, because I feel like my entire life has been one heroine's journey followed by another, followed by another, followed by another, whether it was me deciding at 20 that I was going to become a writer. Like, I studied to be an astrophysicist. I can do freelance writing. And discovering like it's actually I could, like, because I had the power in me all along to do it. Or motherhood, right? That's pregnancy, and I had a very rough pregnancy, very, very rough pregnancy both times. That was a journey where I felt like the old me died and came back, and I was a new me. But the thing that got me through labor and got me through pregnancy was me. It wasn't any of the books I read. It wasn't any of the advice I got from my friends. It wasn't any of my family members or even my husband holding my hand. It was me who did the pushing and got that kid out of me, right? Like it was within me all along. And so I think it's a story that, especially in a society that we live in now, that is very go, kind of disconnected from its own source of curiosity and creativity, I think it's more resonant than ever, because it shows that we have the power to make our lives better. We have the power to transform ourselves. We don't have to trust a therapist. We don't have to trust our workplace. We don't have to trust our friends or spouses or family members. We don't have to go and seek where we belong in all of these other places. It's all within us all along, and we just have to find it.
I love that. I love story structure. I mean, I really do. And so like, that's really cool. Yeah. I mean, I when I was writing my novels, I read all the Save the Cat and all the different, all those things. And again, as an English teacher, we dealt with these things, but I had never heard anybody explain the heroine's journey because I've been away from fiction for so long. I hardly even read fiction anymore. I read so much nonfiction. And then when I do read I just read Emily Henry's newest, and I'm like, and I forget, I love to be lost in the story. It's like the best. And yeah, I loved hearing you explain that.
We'll make sure Substacks get exchanged so you can read this, because the meta layer that we don't have time for would be to get into the role that friendships play in that. And it's just a totally different spin on it that really...
Oh, sure. So in the hero's journey, the hero collects friends as another tool, another weapon, another thing to help him confront the big bad at the end of the road, right? And then come back down. the mountain. But with the heroine's journey, it's the friend, the loved one, the trusted one, is literally the person who calls you back from death, right? That is so powerful because it's not seeing people as a means to an end or as members of your particular team, but as just the relationships are the core of that story, the central thing that makes us human and that makes a heroine is the relationships that she builds with other people. Look at every Disney movie that's 20 years that has come out. They're all heroine's journey. Tangled is a great heroine's journey. It's all about the friendships that we form and the love that we put out into the world reflected back at us.
Yeah, I think it's the most important thing. I mean, it really is. We choose our friends and we get to keep choosing them. You don't have to just have one, and you don't have to force one to work. But I end all my episodes saying when our friendships are going well, we are happier all around. And I really feel that very strongly. I feel the opposite is true too. When you're having like beef with people, it can ruin, and otherwise you could be doing great. Your career, your love life, all the different things. You're healthy. You've got issues with your friends. Like, you are not happy. People really, I mean, it brings you down. So I try to help people not get in their own way. Most people are creating problems that actually don't need to exist. It's a lot of misunderstandings out there. But yeah, I love that, the friend role in the heroine's journey, and how it's life-saving. Literally.
It is. Literally. Friends literally will save your life.
I will not save life with these notes, but we are going through some notes before you guess why I had to put you together. So please freely comment on this stuff. I'm fascinated, not just because I want to make a George Costanza importer-exporter joke about your family heritage, Nina, but mostly because this idea of both of your parents were building blocks people, like the whole import-export screws, whatever else, and then the antenna on the Voyager. Like, how do you think about them as just, they weren't going to do the jobs you're doing today. Nina, go first. Like, your parents weren't going to do anything like what you're doing today. But there's a foundational understanding in what they were doing that I feel like is there somehow.
I don't know. That's so hard to answer. I don't know.
Yeah.
I think of my dad really as a business person. It happened to be screws, nuts, and bolts, but he could have been anything, right? Like he wasn't manufacturing the stuff. Like it's import, export, right? Like you could be importing anything. Happened to be a thing that a lot of people need, which was good. But yeah.
What about you, Laura, with that?
I think with my dad, he was just as hungry to know as I am. He's just as curious as I am, and that served him very well in his life. He is, yes, a building blocks person, but you notice what he made was a radio antenna that communicated. It caught the data that Voyager was, all this wonderful data that it was collecting, and sent it back to us. He was a storyteller. He made Voyager a storyteller, and not just a hunk of parts. So, and I loved the poetry of that. I think that's so beautiful. That, and I feel like the Voyager, I'm really attached to the Voyager's scratch in an unhealthy sort of way. It's like my sibling that I never have. Like, go the little Voyager, go into interstellar space and see such amazing things for us. But yeah, he was the kind of person I don't know why I'm talking in past tense. He's still alive. He's very curious, and sometimes his curiosity outpaces his ability to chase down those rabbit holes. His mind works very, very fast, and that can be frustrating, if you can't keep up with your own thoughts, right? That he's brilliant. He's one of the smartest people in my life that I've ever met, and there's probably a whole book that could be written about the fact that he was a physicist and I went to be a physicist too. So
All right, Nina, and I'm skipping over just so you know, out of kindness, but also whatever. I don't want to ask you about existential crises that you experienced in your early 20s and what your kids would do and how you'd handle those as a parent. But I'm sure that's a whole other conversation.
Yeah, I feel like that.
That's a rabbit hole I'm going to dance over. I'm instead going to go, Nina, what you said about your husband telling you to just start. And I think I want to ask you about this more just because I think this is a conversation I have with my wife all the time. It's like, why are you talking and not doing this thing? Why are you in this loop? Just go start. What did that advice mean to you then? And how do you think about it?
Oh, it really changed the trajectory of my career. And he kind of did the same thing when I was like, I really think I'd like having a podcast. I started to get into that, but I have to learn this and all these things and the technology. I mean, it's much harder than writing, and because you have to depend on so many more tools. He had the same. He was like, remember? I mean, because I've brought up the just start thing. I've written about that before, his advice and everything. And I've used that advice in the writing classes I teach. So it's definitely been like a really present thing. And then he remembers it too, because I talk about it. And so when it came time for the podcasts, he was like, see how that worked out? Just do it again. He's a very type A person. I mean, everything he says he's going to do, he pretty much does. He has a little piece of paper. He gets it down this small. Like he starts the year out with like a list of goals, yearly goals. He breaks them into quarterly goals, and then those quarterly goals get put into a little Post-it with a tiny handwriting. You ever saw it, little squares next to it? And by God, by the end of that quarter, every one of those little boxes is checked. And it could be bigger, like work things, and it could be something like, making sure child number 3's room is consistently picked up, because like that's something he'll pick out something he's going to work with a kid on. And he's like, her room's always a mess. By the end of this quarter, that's not going to be his thing anymore. It's like, it's always a thing like you don't want to be on dad's list. If you're on dad's quarterly like to-do list, that's kind of bad news, because he will be on your case, because he's a get it done person. And so being married to someone like that is actually helpful if you're somebody who would maybe procrastinate naturally or come up with 1,000 reasons why you can't do something. And he was really good about detaching sales or meaning selling to an agent or anything like from success. He still has to help me with that. Like, you don't have to have a certain measure to feel like you're doing the thing, which, it's hard to get over, because I was writing back in the day when people were not self-publishing. Blogs were just growing. It was like there were the big publishing people, and that was it. That was what I was going for. So the bar was really high, but he would always really push me to just, write. Like, that's what being a writer is writing. So it didn't have to be publishing necessarily, which I try to also express to the people in my classes. And podcasting is different because you really are putting it out in the world immediately. And anyway, it was good advice. It was good advice for anybody on any single thing you're working on.
I got goosebumps. I got goosebumps. That's so sweet.
He's a good guy.
Lara,
My husband told me the same thing, basically, and why I love him. He's a keeper.
it's a good foundational stepping stone there.
Yeah.
Lara, I want you to say more about, you had a really strong reaction to Nina's story about stepping away from a successful beat and how hard that is. And you reacted in a way that I was like, oh, okay, this is going in the notes. What was that reaction? Why?
Well, I mean, it's very personal, because I stepped away from a very successful job as an editor-in-chief. I had my dream job, right? That was my dream job, was to work my way up masthead and have that EIC after my name. And I had it for a couple of years, and it just wasn't what I thought it was going to be. And it was very comfortable in a lot of ways. And I learned so much, and I enjoyed putting together a team of writers and mentoring them. That was amazing. But, giving myself the permission to step away and find something new and say, it's okay, you did this dream, find a new dream, without knowing what that dream was, without knowing where I was going, was one of the most terrifying things I've ever done. But I did it because I'm the kind of person that my entire life, I've chased what's hard. I chase challenge. I don't, if something, you give me a choice between something easy, something hard, I'm always 100% going to go for the hard thing just because it's hard. Because I get bored easily and I learn things quickly. And so I need something that's going to occupy my brain. But you get into some ruts when that's your personality. You can chase things that are hard, that are wrong for you. And just because they're hard, you think that's what you should be doing. But in actuality, it's difficult because it's not the right thing for you to be doing at that time in your life. And I've fallen into that trap a couple of times. And so, it was very difficult to step away from the pinnacle of my career that I had worked for years and years and years. But I'm glad that I did. I don't regret it in the slightest, even though I have basically, I'm wandering in the woods right now. I'm not lost in the woods, right? I'm not, lost in the wood connotes this idea that I'm beset by dangers and, I'm scared and alone and I'm going to be, Little Red Riding Hood gobbled up by a wolf at any moment. I'm more like I'm just wandering. I'm exploring, enjoying the sunlight through the trees and enjoying the moment for where I am. And that's allowed me to be a more present mother, be a more present spouse, to actually clean my house once in a while, go out and have friendships, which are so important, as we've discussed. And I'm just so much happier now. I thought that, achieving this dream career was going to make me happy, but in fact, it was just focusing on simpler things. I had that strong reaction. Stepping away from a beat is one of the hardest things that you can do because you've built, in some ways, your identity around this knowledge base and this, this thing that you do. But that's not who you are. Right.
All right. Lara, if people want to find more, you're going to guess in a second, but if people want to find more, we'll keep them waiting one more second. Where should they look you up on the internet? Having to be your friend.
You can find me at laracrigger.substack.com and at Twitter. Same alias.
All right, Nina, what about you? Where should they look you up on the internet if they want to know more?
I love my Instagram and TikTok. They're both Dear Nina Friendship, but and then dearninafriendship.com and Substack is dearnina.substack.com. All the ways.
All the ways. It's time to play the game. You're going to guess, why did I think you two needed to meet? Lara, go ahead. Kick us off. What do you think I wrote down on the back of this card here?
I'm assuming this is some sort of Jewish geography here.
That's what I think too. And writers.
Yeah, and writers. I think probably because, that's it. I think it's the fact that our Judaism is so strong in our lives, and that we are both writers, and that we're both moms. So.
And have changed careers. I think that what we studied isn't, I was a poli-sci Spanish major. The fact that our college training doesn't have much to do with what we do.
Yeah, that's fair.
Which is always near and dear to my heart.
Yeah, I know you like that.
I love that. So what I wrote was basically, it's less turtles and more friends and stories all the way down. And neither of you ever seem to forget that, which I admire about both your work that you're putting out in the world. So thank you so much for coming on Just Record, both of you.
Thank you. I'm so glad to meet you too, Lara. It's great and you too finally met. We've been on LinkedIn connected and thank you for having me.
This has been an absolute delight. Thank you so much. And it's wonderful meeting you, Nina.
Yeah, we'll connect.
The formal email introduction is on its way. Subscribe, all the things we go, and we are out.
Bye.
Thanks for joining us. Like, comment, and hey, subscribe below to Cultish Creative on YouTube if you haven't already. As the good compliance people want me to remind you, Matt Zeigler, that's me, is a managing director at Sunpoint Investments. The opinions expressed in this podcast do not necessarily reflect the opinions of Sunpoint Investments. No information on this podcast should be construed as investment advice. Securities discussed in the podcast may be holdings of clients of Sunpoint Investments. I hope you've been entertained. I hope you found this useful. I hope you talk to a professional before you try any of this stuff at home. And most of all, I hope you've subscribed. Be nice to each other out there. And don't forget, head over to cultishcreative.com and let's make curiosity a habit together. And I'm out.